Hi guys, this is a cross-labeled diagram of analogous structures, something you're going to need to do for your fractional distillation lab. You need to compare the fractional distillation that we did in class with the cherry Coke to the fractional distillation of crude oil. And what you're really trying to do is figure out what structures have the same function in the two different setups. So what I have here is a typical project that 7th graders do when they're learning about the organelles of the cell. Usually you're asked to compare the cell organelles to some other system, and a lot of times it's a city or something like that. But this student here has compared an animal cell to a kitchen, and each structure in the kitchen is analogous to or matches up with a structure in the cell. And I've picked out two to illustrate the point. You can see that the walls of the kitchen and the cell membrane have a similar function. They both provide protection and structure to what they're around. So in the case of the cell, it's providing a barrier that holds the cell together, and it holds it up and protects it from the outside world. And in the case of the kitchen, it creates the barrier from the rest of the rooms, and it also protects and holds together the entire kitchen. Likewise, down at the bottom, you can see I circled in green on the left-hand side the power box for the kitchen, and on the right-hand side the mitochondrion, which is one of the organelles in the cell. And these two structures may look nothing alike, but they do have the same function. They are both there to provide energy for the cell. You might remember the mighty mitochondria. It's often used to describe it because it's where respiration takes place. This is where all that oxygen you need to breathe in needs to go in order to burn sugar and give you energy. And the power box works in a totally different way, but it has the same function. So what I want you to do is to put the two pictures of the two different setups side by side. And you can pull a picture from the internet for fractional distillation of crude oil. And you want to pick one that's simple and that's easy to work with and it doesn't have too much writing on it. And you can pull a picture from the tutorial that I did on fractional distillation. You can just take a snapshot and put the two things side by side. And what I want you to do is match up the structures that have the same function as one another. Make sure that you label everything just like you see in these two drawings. So the kitchen isn't just there, the different parts of the kitchen are labeled. And the cell isn't just there, the organelles are all labeled. And then what you do is you circle and cross-label structures that have the same function. If you're having difficulty with it, you can let me know. There's no right or wrong way to do this, but more detail is usually better. But you want to pick the best details. You want to pick the details that matter, that are important. So always be thinking to yourself, what's the point of a distillation setup? And how is this setup versus this other setup accomplishing that task? So that's what you want to think about. And this is a really good thinking exercise that should help you better understand fractional distillation if you do it properly. I recommend doing the picture before you write your essay because in a lot of ways doing the picture might help you understand better how to write that essay. The essay is essentially doing the same thing. You're going to compare and contrast the different structures. You're going to be saying things like, well, you know, if you were doing it for the kitchen and the cell, you would say things like, well, both the kitchen and the cell require energy, but in the kitchen, energy is provided through a power box that's hooked up to a power grid, and in the cell, energy is obtained through the organelle called the mitochondria, where sugar is burned to release energy. And that's kind of how you want to structure your essay. It should be a series of, well, here are two structures. They both do the same thing, but they're designed differently to accomplish the same task. And that's kind of what you want to go through. Okay, I'll see you guys in class.